So now we have a panel of different folks, and looking a little bit into the future, but in a concrete way. So we'll have Ari Jacques from Mozilla. He's a senior vice president for IoT from Mozilla. They're doing some very interesting things beyond Firefox. We have Lane Arthur, who's a director of information systems from John Deere. And we have Ashish Parekh, who's a VP of software solutions from Arrow. And then Rick Freeman, a good friend of mine, who's a GM of Intelligent Cities. And we've been doing some very interesting things in the city of San Francisco around smart cities and engaging with industry, but all for the benefit of residents. So with that, I'd love to invite the panel on stage, and we'll get going. Perfect. So welcome, Ari, Rick, and Lane, and Ashish. We did a brief introduction, so I'd love to just dive right in and talk a little bit about what each of your organizations is doing today. That kind of sets the context for where you might be heading or where you see the industry might be heading. So Ari, starting with you. Mozilla IoT, that sounds very intriguing and fascinating. So what are you doing today, or where are you heading?
All right, thanks, Param. So Mozilla is an organization that actually has two aspects to it. It is a Mozilla Foundation that is a non-profit organization with the purpose of promoting openness, security, privacy on web. Basically making whatever is in Mozilla's power to ensure that internet remains open resource for all of us. And the other side of the Mozilla, where the most of us work for, is the Mozilla Corporation that is owned by Mozilla Foundation, this non-profit, but with the same mission, to keep internet open and accessible for all. So now if you think about internet's evolution and where internet at large is going, it's definitely going into devices, into spaces, into what we call IoT in this conference. It's taking new forms and shapes. So we at Mozilla think very strongly that now in this new phase of the internet, the same mission remains, and we want to build products, technologies, tools that make it possible for individuals and businesses to thrive on an open internet. And that's what we started to do fairly recently, and we do that, a couple of other things that's important, we do that openly. So we have initiated projects, product projects towards building IoT products. We do that totally in the open and invite participation also from volunteers and from our larger community.
I think that's amazing, because the IoT, the first word is internet. And the natural evolution of bringing technologies that then connect things to the presentation layer, for instance, might be very intriguing.
I agree.
Yeah. Rick?
Yeah, so the way we look at it is that there's new digital infrastructure that needs to be installed in order to really make all these devices solve the problems that they need to solve. And so we've been in the infrastructure business at GE for a long time, and we obviously have had to develop digital infrastructure for our own product lines and what happens behind an aircraft engine and a CT machine. And it just became so obvious that we could take that infrastructure into the open, put it out there, have the community help us make it stronger, use our expertise to keep it secure and resilient, and by backing that with the might of a company like GE and keeping it open, we think it can break down some of the barriers of adoption that exist today. So that's where we're really trying to put a strong investment and and in partnership with a city of like San Francisco or others, show that with that resilient, secure, yet open on the bottom, open on the top, that you can get quick innovation and you can prove out some of those business cases that are behind what we're all trying to do with sensors and APIs and applications.
Yeah, and I love what you're doing with the hackathon. And you're just walking by that area, I don't know if you've been, the energy, you had roughly 200 people, right, there to engage with projects. And I think that talks to the openness, or that demonstrates the openness versus just, companies saying that they're open and that they're trying to do things. So that's really wonderful. So moving on, Lane, tell us about this company that's been around forever, and literally, though I can say that for GE too, right? So tell us more about what you're currently doing, and then we'll dive right into where you're heading.
You bet. So as you mentioned, John Deere's been around since 1837. So why would we be in this space? And the reality is we've been in this space for 15 to 20 years, and have. For the last 10 years, we've had autonomous driven vehicles in the field. So today we have about 200,000 vehicles that drive autonomously in the field to within an inch of accuracy using satellites. And then moved through a progression of, okay, we've got that. What about sensors in our machines so that we can better do predictive analysis of our machines? And then we moved to how do we enable our customers with sensors? And so today, where we are today, is we have sensors on things like combines, where we're measuring the yield, the corn and soybean yield that comes in off of a combine, or we're measuring where we're actually planting seeds. We have sensors that do that as well. And then we've had to create technologies because we're in low bandwidth areas where we have the ability to transmit that data up to the cloud wirelessly from our machines. So
yeah, actually a personal story. I was going to have a photograph of my sister's a big farmer in India. So the farms, I've been here for the last 25 years. So I have a photograph of her on the tractor, and her problem was that she didn't, when the tractors were leaving with the trolleys with different grain, she didn't know how long they were gone, where they were gone, whether they were being used to push someone else's trolleys. Mm-hmm. So a little GPRS unit, probably not from John Deere, but just off the market, gave her that visibility.
That's right.
And I think that demonstrates that it's not just these advanced farms in the United States, but simple just knowing where that thing is has tremendous value to a whole range of people. Yeah. So, Ashish, we had Arrow, again, yes. which is great. But I think you're focused on the software side. So a little bit on the software side of Arrow.
Sure. So Arrow, again, you talked about old companies. We've been around for 81 years and helping customers with solving their business problems, helping with electronic designs, and so it's the natural evolution to say, okay, somebody is looking to build something, you're looking to build something. Where does that data go? How do you onboard the data? As we talk to our ecosystem of partners and to our customers, there's a lot of companies that are focused on once the data is in the cloud and you have the analytics, the capabilities around the data, but the device part where making the device selection and the protocol selection and the engineering required around that is a talent that is, I'll say, unique within Arrow, with over 800 engineers globally that can help customers, pull that design in. And so once we do that, it's really enabling the software element in a gateway, right? To say we can connect any of these sensors that we sell, any of the protocols they support through this gateway, and then landing that data onto a data platform that can reside on any cloud. It could be our sort of parallel that's a PaaS service, or it could land into a GE Predix, or it could
different partners.
Any partner. So
yeah,
it's the anything to anything, which is probably an overused term here.
Well, the more things change, the more they remain the same. You were using that in the enterprise no more than 10 years ago, right? Yeah. So how do you connect all the stuff? And now we have that. So, So with that, Ari, just kicking it off, you and I are probably the closest to the consumer and the resident. So Rick is somewhere in the middle, right? GE for cities. So kick us off with where do you see this heading from a consumer, delivering value to consumers more than the high-flying use cases, but projecting to the future, what do you see?
So I think we are in an interesting time of the consumer IoT. I think we are still looking for really the bigger groups of people to opt in, a reason why would they care. We have projection about the industry size, depending on who you read, that we would spend between now and 2020 like $7 trillion for this industry. And without now making it sound bad, if the best use case we have found so far is a thermostat, beautiful and well built, I think there is something that is missing in between. And how do we create, like where our focus as Mozilla right now very clearly is, we want to understand how we could be impactful in people's life. How could these products, these technologies that obviously allow a lot of things beyond the basic utility. They would allow people to connect each other, people to create experiences that are impactful. How could we prototype and build something that would be meaningful not only for us geeks, but really beyond that? And I think we, as a whole industry, we need to think hard that how much we push this technology versus how much we really create compelling experiences that are impactful for people.
Yeah, and we were a big sci-fi fan, and in the back we were talking that I think it was Isaac Asimov who said that technology can get so advanced that it becomes magic. And for me, looking into the future, for the home experience or for elderly care, right? These are use cases that people are trying to address now. But the experience has to be so seamless, where the technology kind of fades into the background. And you talk a lot about echo and integrating that. But I think as a vision, and this gets back to interoperability, where we started this morning. So I think with that, Rick, you and I have talked a lot about smart cities and making the experience for residents seamless. So where do you see that for cities and the evolution of cities?
So the term smart city has been around for a while. And the way I like to think about it is that what it did up to now was it made City Hall more effective, right? Yeah. Collecting data, putting things together, getting a clearer answer, breaking down silos, productivity play for the most part. We think the next wave is unleashing economic benefit and innovation. So one set of citizens are going to find themselves in an opportunity to solve problems for the cities by open APIs and hackathons and things like that. And that's just going to create economic development. And everybody's going to feel that, because with those kinds of growth and moderate change in the services that cities provide, it makes everything easier, right?
It's been the fundamental thing that cities have done, economic development.
Right. And so we have to help them not silo all their thinking. I want this for a street light. I want that for a water reclamation.
We've seen that with the RFPs, right?
Right. So there's massive change in the cities, but at the end of the day, if you work with the mayor and the city council, who are all elected and are going to stay elected by their citizens, by providing them superior services and life, then you're going to see this transformation. They're going to have to put these systems in place because they're going to be expected to do so.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because many times, even the vendors who come to the cities are basically saying, install our system, and they're responding to an RFP. But the resident in that is lost, and that kind of gets to the consumer as well. So instead of the consumerization of the enterprise, we might see the consumerization of residents, right? So let me continue on that theme. So I IT advisor to Berkeley Haas as well. And Professor Solomon Darwin runs a smart city program at the Haas School of Business, the Garwood Center. And we did a couple of smart city things in India. And now the government has asked them to do smart villages. Now the word smart is so overly used, But what it meant is somewhat of what Rick is saying, that promote economic development or promote better connectivity, or some of the agricultural sensors. We're doing a pilot, where it isn't as extensive as you have here, right? With all the moisture sensors there, and it's satellite-based, but enough information on, where is a dry patch and where's a wet patch, right? Because that makes a huge difference in yields. So I think the smart notion is you have to think globally, but then you act locally. So in the village-sized, it is microgrids. And we've been talking to a variety of companies on how do you set up a microgrid, because that's how you get water. And when you don't have, so the smartness in the future, I think, is delivering in some cases the things that you're already doing here to other areas. So I definitely, if you're looking down 3-5 years, I see the Internet of Things delivering that to more places. And also the networks. The networks are going to be different in India than they were here, right? India never went to traditional telecom, they went directly to mobile. And I think we're going to see something similar maybe with long-range, low-power networks in other countries might take off at a huge rate. So that you have, because they go, between, if it's flat land, they can go between 1 and 10 kilometers with the long-range, low-power networks. So I think that's another part of the future where these networks are going to be very different than what we assume today. No one is going to put one of these on your tractor or a goat or a cow, right? And so I think the network proliferation over the next 3 to 5 years will be more diverse than we think of today. Yep. So thoughts?
Yep. So just to maybe build off of that point around network connectivity, certainly a big issue in agriculture because we don't have 4G everywhere, right? So we have this issue even in the U.S. So I agree with you. I think that complexity and different network needs based on where you are will make a difference, even in the U.S. I would say, in certain places,
totally.
Right? We'll see that. We certainly, you see those issues in Brazil and these large farms. Not just in India and other places,
totally.
right? It's a big issue. So I think that's one of the things that I think will be one of those emerging areas where, in our case, being in agriculture, we want to stay very close to that because it's really important. Another thing that we see, kind of happening as things move forward, and this may seem like an obvious thing, but it's not an easy thing to do, and that is, how do we create a machine that knows where it is and knows the job that it's supposed to perform when it's there, in a way that the operator can just seamlessly make this thing happen. And we're moving toward those kinds of things, which have implications from a technology point of view on how much data do I need to make that decision on the tractor itself, and how much do I need to be pushing data back and forth, right?
Oh, 100%, right? Yeah. So this notion that everything needs to go to the cloud in a use case like that is a non-starter, right? So you need an edge gateway, and if you remember in the beginning of the session, I had that slide of interoperability. And there are the sensors, there's the local mesh network, and then there are gateways. And some of the processing and the logic needs to sit right there. And I think from industry side, we've known this for a long time. But as IoT vendors, you as entrepreneurs look at this, remember that not just because Nest goes up to the cloud, right? It doesn't mean everything needs to. A lot of the stuff for real time or connecting the sensors. If you want to know how many people came into this conference room, you could have a vision-based sensor at the door that's counting people. You could have a camera if you wanted, and you could correlate those feeds right here with a laptop running Linux and simple edge processing environment, and you're done. And the consumer,
we have for example one program going on. We call it a Project Vani, and it's about voice recognition and how much. And one of the aspects we want to do right now is to understand how much you can do locally, and how can you make it clear for the consumer when is the connection being made, if that is relevant, if there are people who are concerned about that voice, those sound bits going out. When do you really need to go out to the internet, and how much you can do locally? And there are no rules yet. Like we don't have rules how to do it. So it's an evolving space.
There's no best practice. I want to come back to that in a second. But Ashish, your thoughts? We've heard a lot about Arrow this morning, but your thoughts on just the forward projection?
Yeah, I come from a customer service background, and no, I wasn't a call center agent, but did play one on stage once. the whole notion of customer service, I think, is going to evolve with IoT. Of how do you take that telemetry and reduce the number of calls? How do you increase the efficiency of supporting an environment? I think all of that is up for grabs. And then projecting out a little bit further, there's going to be so many sensors. Take a tractor, for example. You could have hundreds of sensors. Right. How do you visualize and make sense of this data? A flat dashboard with dials is not going to give you the information you need. So, where does augmented reality fit in here?
Sure.
Audio, visual, and not just, data points. Can you incorporate all those other sensory things in addition to the flat dashboards?
Yeah, so it really give you a more immersive experience,
exactly.
Right? Yesterday at another session on Wearable World, which again, the breadth of this conference is fantastic. We were talking about privacy, and it got into a bit of, I can see some people over here from that session. So what happened was people were talking about these agreements, user agreements, right? And we got into a debate about whether it should be that or it should be a set of controls where, to your point, there is a control that says no data, process everything locally. Or they might be do the data, but only use it yourself, but you can never broker it. And it's very unclear on how that happens today, but it's very easy to see how that could be done because Facebook was forced to do that. I have locked down my Facebook page now just to my network. So any thoughts, and just open it up to the panel on privacy, because we can talk about these futuristic use cases, but if people don't adopt it because of issues like that, so what do you think about these controls from either consumer or industry? Yeah.
One of the reasons that we looked outside first as a way to help solve these problems is there's generally a different expectation on your privacy when you're in a public street than when you're in your cubicle in your office, right? So there is just a huge debate going on in society today, especially in the terror society that we all live in. How many cameras are too many cameras? Can you trust the city or anybody to manage that information effectively? But do you like the sense of safety that you have by knowing that as you travel, that there are people there to help you and that sort of thing? And so we're just going to break all kinds of new rules and work with government.
But how does a resident in the city example or in the home engage with that? To say, yes, I give permission for this, and no, I don't give permission for that.
Yeah, that is a very interesting question because so far, most of the cases have been that I go online using my laptop or my phone. So I initiated the contact. I was the one who made the decision to go online. And I could opt out, do what you did with Facebook, or turn off the phone, or go to the summer cottage where there's no connectivity. But now that is fundamentally changing, and we walk around in these spaces and we don't know what's happening. So I think we need the rules, but we need also think about the user experience, like how do we both educate and make it visible. And I'm a little bit actually pessimistic about this in a sense that if we don't, as an industry and companies, really worry about this and take this into consideration, we can't outsource this to our customers. What I mean I'm pessimistic is that people will always opt for a shiny toy. And they, even though we talk about privacy, we talk about security, people are still geared towards new things. And if they come without us fundamentally building those in and worrying about those, we get products and technologies out that are fundamentally flawed and fundamentally, wrong, and it will be very difficult to fix it then afterwards. So somehow we need to make it visible. We all talk about the security, but on the street, the regular consumer may talk about it, but they will opt in for a shiny toy whenever you make that available.
And yes, I think then there needs to be a mechanism that we need to guide them, and we need to guide industry. So I'm not sure if there's a forum. So Lane, what do you think?
Well, so it's it's a dynamic space in terms of how people think about this and how opinions change, right? So what we've done is we've created a site, basically our trust policy on how you can trust the data, but also in the software that we build, we have built software so that you can decide whether you want to share data with someone else or not, and you can make it clear. It's very clear. You
So
can
it's
go to
not just a
spot.
user agreement. You can
not a
actually
user
go in and
agreement.
set that I just want to keep it local.
Right.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I want to keep my data to myself, or you know what, I have a partner and he does some work on my farm. I'm going to share this field with that partner.
Got it.
And so then we also have created in such a way that it's very visible who your partners are. So you know who you're sharing data with.
It'd be great if you share that, like a use case. I think that'd be wonderful, because you might be farther ahead than a lot of the, the young, hot entrepreneurial companies in that sense.
You know, the basic premise we have is how do we make it transparent to our customers where their data is?
Right.
Right.
So Ashish.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. One was, talking about, Arrow's software platform, Arrow Connect, and again, that fine-grained role-based access control is important, right? Who has access to what, and having the flexibility to define who gets when and logging everything, number one.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important aspect of anything that we see moving forward. I think going back to the whole privacy issue, I think one of the challenges that we're going to have moving forward is there's so many places, right? I agree with you, the shiny toy, and yeah, fine, go ahead and go ahead and track me.
An impulse buy.
Yeah, but go to your iPhones or your device and see how many apps are tracking your location. And if you understand that once you give that permission, they may choose to do something with it, they may not. But when you have 100 apps on your phone, how do you manage that, right? At a fine-grained level? Yes, you have the controls, but how many consumers are going to go in and say, yes, no, do I really trust that provider and what they're going to do with that data?
Well, actually, to that point, maybe it is lies, and you have a lot of expertise in mobile, right? Maybe it is Android and iOS giving us not just the control of turn on my location, but giving us finer-grained controls within that across the applications, which doesn't happen today. Because then it's easily accessible because we connect to a lot of the things in the Internet of Things through this. So I think that's a great idea. And if anyone is listening to this on iOS or on the Android side, I think this is a need, and you'll have a lot of developers who'd be interested in exactly this, and there might be projects going on right now. So another area I wanted to hit upon is that I have a good friend, Oliver, at Electric Imp, and he had done we've done a couple of panels on the business models. And the current business model seems to be predictive maintenance, which you guys have popularized. There's customer service, right? Better customer service, better experiences, more proactive. But we haven't seen the revenue use cases. So looking forward, how do you see these business models actually evolve? And are they business models that are because I think that will make a difference in the broad scale adoption. We're really not seeing consumers adopt IoT at a broad scale. So are they business models or motivators for adoption that are really key? Because otherwise we'll be having these conversations in these forums, but that broad-based adoption that we all need for the revenue. So any idea on evolution of business models? Where are we seeing this? How do we push them forward?
Yeah. Crickets. So maybe I'll start,
Sure.
and we'll maybe we can go from there. I would say that our experience is that the closer we get to our machines, the more we know how to charge for that and make money. So if that makes any sense. And so what I mean by that is, we have a machine today. If you want to have autonomous steering in your cab, I know how to charge for that. It's a mechanical device plus a connectivity to satellites and those kinds of things, right? And then if you want visibility, so if you just move the next layer, and so now I want you to be able to visualize my machine on our application. You want to see where it is, what the gas is, what the different features of the machine are. If you want to see that, we know how to charge for that one too, right? So when you get further away out to what is the value that this customer gets for their whole operation and their farming and their visibility into how their crops are being harvested and all those kinds of things, we're still, I would say the entire industry is still exploring that space, trying to figure out what that looks like. Does that make sense?
No,
there's a progression in my mind in terms of how
right,
we
and
think
it's
about
logical that we are at predictive maintenance, right?
Yeah.
Which does have value to customers and to the company. But I think as we get more granular, as we understand this, then you might be able to add a revenue model that has mutual benefit. So Uber now has started showing me little promotions, and some of them are valuable. And I'm like, okay, so that's for me. And then there's a mutual, because the business model has to work on both sides. So I think I really like the making it more granular, and as we understand the granularity, we'll really get to the business models for business and then value for consumers. Right. So Ashish, sounds like you had.
Yeah, just a thought on that. Aero works with customers to enable their businesses. As we are engaging with large retail and customers, the predictive maintenance is a key factor for them. But when you look at a franchise operation, it's how do you really draw out the value, right? I think everyone says, yeah, I think if my machine was not down, I can get X number of sales.
Right.
But people are still working through that, and it's not that the top level brand owns that decision. It's every franchise owner that owns that decision, which makes it a little bit more complicated in terms of the cost benefit analysis there.
Right.
It seems to me, I got a lot of friends. I'm from Europe, from Finland, and when I talk to my colleagues there about IoT, it's almost always about industrial applications. Here in the valley where I live, it's always about consumer. And I think these two phases, and there's an overlap, it's a huge overlap, but they are in the different stage. And I think monetization and business model in the industry, if I talk about automating your factory, your fleet, your other industrial, applications, it is more, seems to me, making that more efficient, and the business model is, I can understand that. If you come to the consumer space, I think we are still a lot in the utility space, and we think about IoT as an enhancement to the utilities, whether that's power savings, whether that's monitoring, and there is certain established business models there that IoT can enhance. But I would claim that especially in the consumer space, unless we find applications that connect people and are social and can touch people on an emotional level, not only at the utility level, we really don't add that much value as IoT could, and therefore the business model are harder. So whenever we can untap, whenever we find applications that really make people to connect each other and social, I think there are a lot of different business models that can be utilized.
Yeah, and that also gets to what information you're willing to share to make it social.
Sure.
Right? So, so we ride a lot, bike rides in the foothills here, and we still don't have a great application. I use Cycle Meter, right? But and then I come back and I share my Cycle Meter. I send an email to myself, and then I will forward that email out to the other people on the team, and then we'll look at that. Versus you're going as a pack, right? There are only 6 of us, not those those packs of 50 bicycles. But to that point, yeah, I'd love to have it be proactive. So sometimes you have to stop and see if someone got left behind. So I think the social aspect of it, or the intersharing, which hasn't happened in consumer yet. I know there's some startups starting to look at that. But that also gets to you're riding a bike, and what radio network are you going to use? Are you going to use GPRS, and we have our phones, or is it more efficient for there to be a small little long-range, low-power that's interconnecting, or is Bluetooth BLE sufficient, right, to interconnect in that smaller ecosystem? So,
by the way, I use an app that just outright lies for my behalf, and it says Ari went on a run and ran 2 miles or 20 miles and brags about it without me going outside. So that's another way to be so.
That's a necessary thing with the new healthcare programs, right? Where you need to walk a certain number of steps. So yeah, definitely we'll talk afterwards. So.
When we look at our business model for entering into this, there's another thing that's happening right now at the same moment in time, and that's the massive conversion of old, low-efficiency lighting to new, super-efficient lighting. Mm-hmm. So when we talk to customers about our IoT play, it's don't just take that savings and put it in the bank. Take that savings and invest in things that are going to improve the space, your citizens, and those kinds of things, right? Yeah. So for enterprise, somebody who owns office space, yeah, saving some energy, that's great. I mean, that's a lot. Making the building more comfortable so that the tenants are more productive.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to measure, but they understand that if you can do that and give some people some fine-grained control of their environment so that they feel that then they like to be there, they like to work, they're more productive, and that building gets to be known as the place that you want to work.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point of, we are tying together what the privacy levels so that you can set what threshold. You may not want your neighbors to know when you're not home, but you may want to share, I'm going out with my dog, or the dog is actually, has left the building. Mm-hmm. So this notion of sharing, combined with this notion of the sensors aren't just lighting, right? And you talk a lot more about this as not just GE lighting, but the related sensors. So the same light pole could have not only LED lighting that can be controlled dynamically, but also parking detection or a variety of other sensors. So you get this other thing I think we're seeing is this multi-use of IoT sensors and them getting clustered together. And that's a great example. In the home as well, it's great to have Alexa on one side, and it's great to have, Nest, and it's great to have your drop cam, and great to have all these other things. But the seamless interaction between those and then the data control. So it's funny how it's all interrelated too, right? So.
But I would still actually, and I think this is important that we discuss about that, but where my mind is right now, today is very much on something you said earlier about when you talk about the privacy. You used an example of knowing when my dog goes out. And I think why that is an interesting use case is that most of us, we wouldn't spend a lot of money with the technology that would let us know when the dog goes out. That's a little bit, with all due respect, Param, that's a little bit stupid example. Yeah. But we keep on using those because we haven't come up with really impactful use cases around the home in our lives. So this is unfortunately still technology, especially in the consumer space, looking for a really impactful usage. Yeah. And privacy, security are absolutely necessary ingredients. But I would claim that we are still missing for those and looking for those impactful use cases.
Yeah. And I think that's part of this dialogue, right? That there's a lot of use cases out there, but the ones that people will really pick upon. So for me, my dog is the center of my universe, and I would love for somebody to walk him for me, right? So I think as we look forward, and we've been going around, industrial use cases and consumer, I feel that there is still so much not known, right? It's to your point, Ari, that these use cases we have, as industry normally does, we are thinking these use cases that apply to maybe a person, but they aren't broadly applicable. Yeah.
But to go on the dog, replace the dog with a child, right? And depending on where you live, maybe the kid's walking to school. Again, it's a concern around where is my child. You don't necessarily want to give your 7-year-old or your 10-year-old, a mobile device so you can maybe track them using GPS. But you talked about long-range networks, right? How could those play into solutions like that? And then the whole privacy thing comes in of who has access and under what conditions, because in the wrong hands, that's really dangerous.
Yeah, there's a great example in Korea where children of a certain age are given a device by the school that the data is only available to the school and the parents. And it uses 2G networks, right? Because they're there. In the US, I believe we're shutting these 2G networks down. Right. While there's a great use case of a great need, right, an imperative that everyone really cares deeply about. And there the schools and the parents had to come together to really make this use case happen because of the sensitivity of it, but the need was apparent. So right. Actually the ecosystem came together around a city effort to make this use case really happen, and everyone got a lot of value from it. Bringing that over to the US, I'm not so sure. I think it'd be harder to get the city and the local school district and parents with different sensitivities to do the same thing. So we have a couple of minutes left. Any last thoughts on over the next 3 to 5 years, where should startups start looking to pairing with you? You know, like even John Deere.
Yep.
Are they specific areas that are of interest where you need this innovation?
Yep. Yeah. So there definitely are, and maybe just to build off the conversation and then go in that, right? So the business model conversation is important, but only as in terms of where the value is, as we've been talking about, right? And so as I think about partners for us down the road, and we have partners today, we have over 80 API partners today that work with us on our platform. We will not build everything ourselves, and in fact, we don't want to. Different growers in the industry have different needs. And so we look forward to partnering with different companies to build out those needs and functionality that farmers would value and then maybe use as a business model.
Great. Anyone else?
So I think where partners can work with both city and enterprises is those apps that are special purpose to solve a unique problem. I think big companies will help the cities and the enterprises solve inherent problems like energy efficiency or parking or traffic. But the app development community running on top of that, they're going to find some of these consumer specific, love that app kind of thing. And then the guys that build great sensors, they need to integrate into infrastructure that's going to bring that out and get value right away. So it's open at the top, open at the bottom.
Ari, final words?
So we have since you let me a little bit advertise, 15 seconds. So we have a bunch of projects going on, and they are publicly available for you to take a look at and participate, building those openly. As I said, we work on open voice recognition and speech recognition. We look into communication, how especially teenagers would communicate, without phones, but just like magically. We look into data collection and especially in collecting air quality data. That's an interesting intersection between sort of cities and individuals. And then we look at interoperability between devices. We have one project going on that we want to understand, like, how do you make different vendors and different devices work together, especially at homes. Most of these are online. You can find them by Googling.
Awesome. Great. Ashish?
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time talking about the machine to machine. It's getting data from one place to the other, from a sensor to a data platform, writing an app. I think the one conversation we haven't had is the machine to person interaction, the M2P.
Right.
And how does that play into, again, bring the human element to it? It's not just about machines talking to machines. At the end of the day, there's a process and there's a human being that needs to engage. Using technologies like WebRTC to bring that video and voice element into that interaction at the right time. How do you use video to diagnose a problem or to diagnose a person, right? I'm going out on a walk, my heart rate is elevated,
Yep.
I can talk to my nurse and she can see me and we can have an interaction there.
No, I think that's a great use case. So with that, guys, thank you very much. I've loved having the old companies as well as young initiatives. So thank you. And next we're gonna love for you to come back some other time and continue this dialogue.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage founder, IoT World, Gavin Whitechurch.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So, thanks very much to Param and the panelists. What a fantastic panel that was to close out the keynotes here. Param referenced during the presentation a couple of times the amazing range of content we have for you here so you can make deep dives into all these different aspects of IoT. So I just wanted to give you a little guide to where you'll find various things here at the show. There's a range of free-to-access content. In fact, you can see Param again later at the IoT Open Source Summit, which takes place on the IoT show floor, as well as the IoT Ecosystem Center stage we have there, which is looking at some horizontal pieces of content that affect the whole of the IoT ecosystem. If you want to connect with software developers, we have the Android stage and the developer stage, as well as the gaming and enterprise stages in the show. Anyone who's in this room here can also access all the high-value content we have. And as Param referenced, there's a whole range of different conference sessions. Most of those are vertical deep dives, so you'll find industrial, cars, and so on. But you'll also find horizontal pieces of content like the IoT Data Summit, looking at some of the analytics, was referenced by Arrow, and say the IoT and the Cloud Summit there. And you'll find all of that content in the ballroom that sits behind this one, as I look behind you. So to access that, you'd go out of these doors and then turn left. So you're going left and left again to access that ballroom. Also, as Param referenced, there's also the Wearables World Congress, and you'll find that actually upstairs in the convention center. So you go left and then turn right and go up the escalators there. And that's really focused around the wearables piece. So please take advantage of all that content. Also, as this is the last time we're all together here, I just want to take this opportunity to say some thank yous. So I really wanted to thank our sponsors here and all the great speakers you've been hearing from. I wanted to thank Param and people like him, because we've had an incredible range of good friends in the industry that really helped us to scale this show so quickly over the last couple of years, from 700 people to the 10,000 people we have here. And also I wanted to thank our incredible staff who've been very dedicated to build this show. But also, most of all, I wanted to thank all of you people, because it's your participation and your willingness to come and contribute to the show and help us build the industry here for IoT. It's this incredible level of interest that's really driving the participation and driving building something fantastically new, this amazing world of IoT. So thank you. Please enjoy yourselves today, and if you have any comments on the show, we'd love to hear from you. So please come and see myself or my staff. Thank you.
I've been around